What's this? Let's check it out. Toucan. Play at this game. Toucan Rescue Ranch. I'm back at 1:30.
Correcto. ¿Han escuchado que hay de 2 y de 3 dedos? La diferencia es en las manos, en las patas delanteras. Atrás todos tienen tres. So that's very important. There are 2 different kinds of sloths, 2-toed sloths and 3-toed sloths. But in English, I'd rather to call them 2-finger sloth or 3 fingers. I think it's less confusing this way because every sloth will have 3 toes on each foot. Doesn't matter the species. The difference is always on the forelegs, on the hands. We have Milo, who's the oldest one. He is 17 years old. So yeah, as I was saying before, unfortunately there's this misconception that sloths are always slow and lazy when actually they're not like that. I know that they're not exactly helping me to prove this point right now. I just came out of the bed. But well, 2-toed sloths are more nocturnal, while 3-toeds are more diurnal. So it's not that they're lazy, it's just sleeping time. Besides, they don't sleep that much. In the wild, they will sleep between 7 to 10 hours per day. In captivity, yes, it's true, they'll sleep more, but almost every animal in captivity sleeps more. Their diet are leaves. Leaves are very poor, nutritionally speaking. So to get some sort of benefit, they do need to be constantly eating. I think they were assigned the wrong thing. It should have been glutton, not really sloth. Leaves not only lacks of calories and proteins and nutrients, leaves are also very difficult to digest. As a matter of fact, there's no animal, and there has never existed an animal capable to digest leaves by its own. Every single animal develops some technique. Most use bacteria. Sloths have lots of bacteria in their stomach. These bacteria will fermentate the leaves that they eat. And through that process, they get a benefit from their diet. But fermentation is a process that we know pretty well. We use it to get things like yogurt or alcohol like beer, wine, and we know that it takes time. So they need to keep the food in their stomach as long as the bacteria needs. That's why they develop anaerobic metabolism. It is true that sometimes they will move slow, or will barely move. Not always, sometimes. And that's because they have anaerobic metabolism, and there's one more reason. There's no rush. It's a choice. People assume they are not able to move fast, and no, certainly they can if they need to. Yes.
Like have moss on their fur that grows on them or something?
Yeah, in the wild especially. Here they also have algae mostly. And you know, their hairs are hollow. And algae, you know, are microscopic, so they will get in the hair. And no matter how many times you wash the sloth, no matter if you use bleach on the poor sloth, it will remain green. These ones have allergies as well, but not as much as the wild ones. Here they have a roof, blankets, buckets that were spoiled. Of course, there's a part without a roof if they want to get wet or take sunbaths. So that. And yeah, if they need to move fast, if they need to defend themselves, they will. The first thing they'll do is to open their arms. They go like this. If you ever see a sloth doing this, it's not a hug, it's not a high five. Don't demonize animals, please. It's the worst mistake we can make. This is so they can swing their arms at you. Now, the swing of their arms is really quick. Like, even humans need to have really good reflexes to avoid it. But not only they try to hurt you with their claws, but they also try to grab you so they can pull you towards their mouth and bite. And they tend to launch themselves towards you to bite. That's definitely their main weapon. They have premolar and molar teeth at the very back that helps them to chew on leaves. Makes sense. But these animals also have forked teeth that are known as canine fronts. Very similar to the canines that carnivores have, are worms. Estos son los dientes de un perezoso. Ellos pueden morder, entonces hay que tener mucho cuidado con eso. Those are ever-growing teeth. So they wear down their teeth just by the constant grinding. Every time they open and close their mouth, their opposite teeth will touch each other and will wear down naturally. But also keeps them sharp, that movement. Their teeth are razor sharp. It gets through flesh easily. And well, even though three-toads won't attack you as actively as two-toads, still I advise people to always keep the distance, because if you come across a two-toad, for your safety, keep the distance. If it's a three-toad, for their safety, keep the distance. They don't cope very well with stress. Even in top zoos, top sanctuaries accredited with the best conditions, their lifespan seems to be reduced, while in the case of two-toads, their lifespan seems to be increased in captivity. Baby, and that's like the rear. And it's in water, so in a few moments, bubbles coming out. ¿Como verde? Ya le enseño. Sí, esa es la parte de atrás de un perezoso, y del agua van a salir unas burbujas. Porque ellos se echan gases.
Because there's a myth that they don't fart.
So that handsome over there is Taboo. He's a clouded Oncilla, the smallest species of the Costa Rican wildcats, or also known as clouded tiger cat. Oncilla or tiger cats. This is the most rare of all the animals that we have here. So the name clouded is because they inhabit the cloud forest. So they inhabit highlands, and I call them the ghost of the Costa Rican cloud forest. Since 2011, there have been only 250 detections of these animals, thanks to cameras, thanks to organizations that are fully committed to search for them. We don't know a lot about this species, but at least I can tell you about Taboo. So even though they have the cloud forest, it was found dumpster diving behind a hospital in Cartago province, one of our main cities. Not the cloud forest, terrible storm. But anyways, we rescued him, and at first he was doing really well. He was eating properly, he was behaving aggressively. He actually seemed to be a good candidate to be rewarded. But we noticed as days were passing, he wasn't defecating, he wasn't pooping, until someone came up with the idea of giving him a litter box. The moment he saw it, did his business at home. And yeah, that's why we think that he was being kept as a pet, trying to use the box. And maybe he escaped, or maybe as soon as he became more aggressive, the former owner stomped me out. I do tend to blame everything on people, so I like the latter option. Clouded Oncilla, the name of the species. I can't stress enough how important the word clouded is. Then the distribution map. There is a population isolated in Central America. And also I want you to notice that it matches highlands. So the Central America mountain ranges and the Andes. They won't be found in the snowy parts of the Andes, of course, but still pretty high up. And this is the scientific name up here. The second word, it's always the species. So species is Pardinoides. So this is the old sign. This one's not updated. You will see that it's in the cloud. I said it's important. And you can see how different the distribution map is, or was. Yeah, people years ago noticed that the individuals from lowlands were different compared to the highland ones. Not only these animals show differences in this behavior, but also the morphological physical differences. And with further research, we discovered the genetic differences. All of this led to this animal being considered a new species like in the We have this knowledge in a big part thanks to Taboo. As it says here, Taboo has made an important contribution and has been confirmed by genetic analysis as the only Central American Oncilla in captivity in the world. From his subspecies, he is the only one in captivity.
He's ready. He's a hungry boy.
You said you were training him earlier. Like, did you go in there to train him, or like from afar?
Through the fence.
Oh.
Yeah, target training mostly.
Oh.
And I use it to shape other behaviors.
Okay. What does target training mean?
So, target can be both a verb and a noun. The noun is an item that is used for the animal to touch, and once the animal touches it, it gets rewarded. That's how target training works. And target, the noun, is the action of touching the target. Okay, he's showing off
his catch, huh? You worked so hard for it.
Nice. Top predator, up there in the food chain.
Abejas también hay.
Abejitos llegan bastantes por dicha también. Por las mismas flores que les gustan a los colibríes.
It's funny, his mannerisms, they're not very like house cat.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. He's a little bit more like fluid in his movements.
Yes. I've seen house cats bigger than him.
Yeah.
But house cats, they've reached a point where they're so lazy and, and clumsy. Yeah, well, he's more fit.
Yeah.
No, I love that wild cats and domestic cats, they share some behaviors and some things in common, and we can apply those things into knowledge that we have of domestic animals, these ones.
Yeah.
But always there are exceptions. Some wild cats will love boxes, others they don't like it. Neytiri, the Jaguarundi, that hopefully we'll see later, she loves water, he hates water.
That's so interesting.
One time I was reading that feeding cats at random times helps to prevent stereotypic behaviors. So yeah, just random feedings will keep them more active throughout the day. And that worked perfectly with Neytiri, the other cat that hopefully we will see. When I tried with Taboo, I broke him down. Poor guy, every time he will look at me, he will think that it was feeding time. So he will get like super anxious, even if I wasn't actually going to feed him.
Wow.
So in the case of Taboo, it's better to have a set schedule.
I mean, that sounds like it would lean more towards he was raised as a house cat, right?
True.
Having that deterministic food.
It could be. Yeah. So I always say that he has provided a lot of information, but we can get mostly genetic information. Behavioral is not really trustworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know too much about these animals, but I don't think they will poop in a litter box in the wild.
Yeah. And how long have you had Taboo again?
Since 2013, so 12 years, yeah.
And what's their lifespan typically?
Since these ones are not that known, I can't guarantee 100%, but based on the standard among cats, 20 years.
Okay.
So he's over his midlife now. So that's a great review. So the way they hunt at night, they remain perched, but whenever they feel insects or bats or any prey items flying nearby, they fly, catch the animal, and perch back. So even at night, they rely on their camouflage.
Great Potoo.
Companies that have hens to sell their meat or eggs, they don't need too many roosters, so the little chicks that are males, they'll kill them anyways. And if we don't use them here, they will go to waste. Actually, they donate them to us. So this is a bat Falcon. They specialize hunting bats, that's why the name. His name is Batman, by the way. Sí, ese pequeñito de ahí se llama Batman. ¿Sí? Y se le puso ese nombre porque es un halcón murciélaguero. Y es que en la selva ellos comen muchos murciélagos. Es como la comida favorita. Pueden comer otras cosas, pero les gustan mucho los murciélagos. They also eat a lot of insects in the wild. Insects are attracted by street lights, and then the insects will attract these birds. They end up around cities and streets, roads, and they end up getting hit by cars. Which is what happened to Batman. He arrived with a horrible fracture on his right wing, and he had to amputate. Ok, creo que ya podemos ir a ver estas aves de acá.
Las águilas.
Es básico. Mira que me parecen mucho águilas. En realidad sí me parecen mucho como águilas o gavilanes. Se comportan como los opilotes, como los buitres, que se alimentan de animales que ya están muertos. Pero ellos son halcones. Son la segunda especie más grande de halcón que hay en el mundo.
Ya con mi casa.
Ah, ¿los has visto qué pasa?
Vuelan muy alto.
Vuelan altísimo, claro, y sí le creo que los haya visto en realidad. Sí, es una especie más o menos común, muy importantes. Y sí, ellos están más relacionados a Batman que a los buitres. Crested Caracaras, they look like hawks, behave like vultures, and can be scavengers. But this is actually the second biggest species of falcon in the world.
Wow.
They are more related to little Batman than to hawks or vultures. There are two individuals. Uhura, who's up there on the branch. Since they behave like vultures, they can be scavengers, these animals will fit on road wheels sometimes. And it happens that they end up getting hit by cars. That's what happened to Uhura. The other one, Kirk, I don't know if you noticed, his left wings like fell down because he got shot there. There's this internal fight between people who own poultry, birds, and this kind of animals, raptors. Actually, caracaras, they are not active hunters compared to others. It's not very likely that they will hunt and eat your chickens, but people won't identify birds before shooting. La parte de frente tiene como rosado, tiene un montón de colores. Él aquí, ese de ahí, llegó y ya sabía decir hola. Hola. Yeah, so
That guy's making fun of his laugh.
But the parrots have a wide vocabulary.
Copying the
They
cough.
cough, they laugh. There is, yeah. Especially that species, that's the yellow tip, Amazon parrot. They're really, really good at making sounds and learning those. We have one that sings the song of the national soccer team. Well, about the parrots, I will tell you more about later because we have them all over the place. I
Hola.
want to focus on the cough.
Dos tipos.
Hola.
Y otra vez.
Here we have Jack. He's a blue and yellow macaw. He's a show up. And let's
That's
ignore him.
contagious.
I don't feel like talking about him just yet.
Hola.
I wanted to tell you about scarlet and the great green macaw. Those two species are native to Costa Rica. Scarlet are found in the Pacific, the great green ones in the Caribbean. And both are endangered. But nowadays, in Costa Rica, very specifically in the country, scarlet macaws are doing really well. They have a stable numbers and they are considered least concerned. This is because since years ago, different organizations have been working with these animals with breeding programs. They bred them in captivity, so then they can rewild the new offspring to the wild and increase their numbers. These programs have been successful for the scarlet ones, not as much for the green ones. We're not allowed to breed wildlife without a special purpose. We need to avoid it happening. So we use different techniques. In the case of these ones, it's easy. We have them all mixed, females and males, it's fine. Because they need more than a partner to breed. They also need competitors. They need nesting materials, a place where they can nest. If we don't provide them with those things, they won't do it. And even if we would like to breed them, it's not as easy because sometimes they can ask for very specific conditions. The great green macaws are picky. They like to nest mostly in the mountain almond trees. This is a very rare tree in Costa Rica.
Hola.
Grows slowly and it's so fine, yeah. And the wood's really good. So we can cut them down immediately. We don't have a lot of those trees, so we don't have a lot of these birds. Like this parrot.
What is it?
Little parrot.
Little pirate.
And Jack wants to steal the show. Yeah, now I'll talk about him then. This is a blue yellow macaw, and he is the only exotic animal that we have here. So he's not native to Costa Rica. That species in the wild can be found only in South America. He's here because he was found at the
South
airport.
America.
Someone was trying to smuggle him out of the country.
Wow. At the airport.
Yeah.
So he can fly.
In luggage. Well,
It's a bad joke.
no, I enjoy those jokes. You have no idea. I just wasn't expecting it. The one that is at the tip of that branch up there on the right, you can see that it has orange and green and blue, and yellow, the whole spectrum of the light. That's a hybrid. Her name is Catalina. She's a mix between it's a mix between a scarlet macaw and a blue and yellow macaw.
Really? Wow.
It didn't happen here, right? It was confiscated. It was almost pet.
Hola. Hola. Nice dancing. Thank you. Hola. Hola. Hello. Hola. Hola.
Es una gata salvaje. Esa especie, ese animal se llama Jaguarundi.
Wow. Sí.
So yeah, that's a Jaguarundi.
Y le gustan las plumas.
Las plumas, ajá, son de las otras aves que vimos ahorita, los guacamayas. Pero se las damos a ella para que juegue. Las plumas, ¿verdad? No los guacamayas. So yeah, that's Neytiri. She's a Jaguarundi, the third smallest species of the Costa Rican wildcats. Taboo, the one that we saw before, is the smallest one of all of them. There are 6. So there's one more species in between Jaguarundis and Oncillas. That's the margai. Now, this is the most rare of our wildcats. First of all, they have a very marked diurnal behavior. While the other species like taboo, they are nocturnal or adapt and change depending on their needs. However, these ones, they are always diurnal. So Neytiri is what we call an example of a fake rescue, false rescue. I believe I explained this with the owls the other day. Do you guys remember what it was?
Yeah, it was somebody found like a baby all by itself, and the humans freaked out thinking that the baby was abandoned by its parents.
Exactly.
But
I don't mean to quiz you, but yeah. Yeah, it's an animal that is perfectly fine where it was found. And someone thought that it needed help. There are many examples. I talked about this with owls.
Hola.
Because we have a species of owls in Costa Rica that will nest on the ground. So people find the babies in the ground and they assume that they fell off from a tree. It happens a lot with fledglings. These are juvenile birds that are learning how to fly. Sometimes they jump from the nest and they fall. And it's normal. They will go back up again and try one more time. But again, people finds them on the ground and takes them. It happens a lot with babies, especially with babies of a species where parental care is presented by just one of the parents. Sometimes mom or dad will have to leave the baby hiding among the grass, bring a den in a burrow, to go out and look for food, and that's where people interfere. They find the baby and assume that it's abandoned. It has happened to us that we received animals, and sometimes we're able to tell people, put it back where you found it, and keep a distance, keep an eye on it from the distance. Maybe call us again in 3-4 hours. If nothing changed, we can reevaluate this situation. But sometimes they will keep the animals for some time, days, before bringing them here. But that moment is too late. Or I remember one time we received a baby squirrel that came in a kennel, but that kennel was used for a cat. As a squirrel, if your child comes home smelling as a predator, you'll kick it out. You will deny it as your son. Mammals rely a lot on their sense of smell. That's very cute, especially when they're babies, so sometimes people will grab them and hug them and rub all over themselves. And these people impregnate their smell onto the animal, which causes rejection from the mom. I always advise people to call and ask the rescue center before even touching the animal.
Ella es muy cansona, juguete.
¿Ella qué?
Muy
big
bien.
sniffs going.
Muy divertida los juguetes, sí, allá. De hecho, eso es una muy buena observación. Si uno no tiene juguetes ni nada que hacer, ¿qué pasa?
Se la lleva.
Sí, y uno se aburre, ¿verdad? Si uno no tiene juguetes ni nada que hacer. Entonces a los animales hay que darles juguetes. Hay que darles cosas para que ellos hagan. Sí, a los animales domésticos hay que darles juguetes y también en este tipo de lugares a los animales salvajes, silvestres, hay que darles juguetes también. Ella tiene esos rascadores ahí. Esa caja de allá, antes la usaba también para rascar. La llanta, le gusta saltar en la llanta, en el coco. A veces le ponemos la comida escondida en el coco, entonces ella tiene que intentar sacar la comida de ahí. Ah, bueno, las plumas que antes vio también. Ah, bueno, le voy a contar la historia de ella porque es muy importante que la sepa. Ella le decimos que es un falso rescate. Este es un animal que alguien creyó que necesitaba ayuda y lo rescataron, lo agarraron, se lo trajeron para acá. Pero en realidad ella no necesitaba ayuda, ella estaba bien. Ella era una bebé y la mamá la tuvo que esconder para buscar comida. Y alguien se la encontró solita y creyó que es que estaba abandonada. Pero la mamá estaba buscando comida, nada más, la mamá iba a volver. Por eso siempre es muy importante no agarrar a los animales, sino más bien preguntar primero. Pueden llamar a lugares como a nosotros y nosotros podemos ver si el animal ocupa ayuda o no.
I noticed the tail doesn't have a lot of fur.
Yes,
Normal?
that's been a headache. First time we noticed it was like a year and a half ago. We noticed fleas in her brochure back then, so that was like one of the hypotheses. Maybe she was scratching, but it's very specific. That's her tail.
Yeah.
And yeah, we treated the fleas, and we also provided her with a lot of enrichment because we also thought that it could have been an stereotypic behavior, a behavior due to stress, over leaking body part. Sometimes it's one of these behaviors. And well, she recovered. She was looking all pretty. But a week ago or something like that, we noticed the same pattern again. And there are no fleas this time. We already checked on it. We haven't seen her either leaking or any stereotypic behavior. So the vets, yeah, they even took samples from it. It's not a fungus, it's not bacteria. So the hypothesis now is a very odd alopecia pattern just on her tail because it follows two very specific parts of her tail. If it's bacteria or fungus, it will be more irregular.
Right. Interesting.
So it's something that we're still figuring it out, but alopecia in a very located spot is the main diagnosis so far. Yeah.
That's like, I mean, cats get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not ideal,
Yeah.
but if it's something genetic, well, there's not much that we can do.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you see everywhere.
Yeah.
San Jose Central Park, out of your hotel window, especially early mornings, late afternoons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we have a couple of those. People keep them as pets too. Not as often as these ones because they're not as good imitating words or sounds. Still, they can learn. Actually, we had one a while ago. His name was Quiero Café. Spanish for I want coffee. He kept saying Quiero Café.
Is that a wild toucan, I guess,
It's a
chilling?
wild toucan, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you for saying that in a calm manner. Some people freak out when they see it and they're like, oh, it's gay.
Hay muchos de esos en Heredia.
Ajá.
It's a wild toucan.
Sí.
See?
They're healthy. The wild one just gave the other one a berry.
We do feed them. But the wild one,
The wild one is feeding the other guy. He's helping him out.
Ahorita
Wild toucan helping a caged toucan.
I was going to tell you about a couple of parrots that are there, but it's okay. Can talk about those, showing you these ones. But back there we have two parrots with gray fluffy feathers. Those feathers are like the inner coat that they all have. But in the case of those two are visible because they overgroom each other and themselves as a stereotypic behavior due to stress. One of them is Lurita. Lurita is 59 years old and she spent 30 years of her life in a tiny cage where she didn't have room to spread her wings. So her muscles atrophied and she lost the ability to fly.
Son como pascatúas.
Están relacionadas, sí, es cierto. And yeah, by not being able to fly, this carries stress and that's why she overgrows herself. But here she met Ramon, who was very handsome when he met Dorita. But here they began a relationship which is not the most healthy, I must say. They started overgrooming each other. So now both of them look the same. But yeah, they don't seem to show any other problem. And Ramon is able to fly, so yeah, they look better now.
So they got in a relationship and they started overgrooming each other, but now they're healthier, stabilized. Hop, hop, hop.
So that's a fiery built Aracari. It's the same one as the one in this enclosure. 100% wild animal. It's never been under repair. He just came one day and stayed around. Certainly he doesn't care much about people, so maybe former pet. But he's doing well so far. Now here is we have Mojito. It's a rainbow-billed toucan. Honestly, they are mostly known by the name Gill-billed, but I do prefer to call them rainbow-billed. I think it fits them better. I'm actually very proud of him because he's looking all handsome now. He's very colorful. When he arrived, he barely had any colors, but that's because he was very young. He still is a juvenile. But as they grow and develop, they start getting more colors. So their colors are not only related to their age, but also to their diet. I've seen adults that were being kept as pets, and they were malnourished. You can tell that just by looking at the coloration. Much pale and dull colors. With that being said, do you know what do they eat?
I guess berries.
Berries? Okay, but can they eat something else or just berries? Samuel, ¿alguna idea de qué comen los tucanes? ¿No sabes?
Banano.
Banano, okay. Yeah, but not as much. It's not as much related to their diet, but a different function. And no, excellent answers. They have a preference for fruits, that's true, but it's important for them a source of animal protein. So these animals will eat insects as well, and amphibians, reptiles, smaller birds, smaller mammals, eggs, hatchlings, almost everything that fits in their beak. If we were small enough, they will eat us. One time I saw a video of a toucan eating a squirrel. In the video, the toucan grabbed the squirrel by the tail, and then it was smiting it. It's a prank. That's how it killed it first.
Oh my gosh.
Now, their beaks are not as strong as you might think, but they are serrated, and that allows them to tear apart small pieces of flesh. That's how they eat.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Ellos comen de todo. Comen bananos, sí,
Rata.
pero también pueden comer otros animales más pequeños, hasta una rata. Yeah, these animals, they don't make an external nest that is visible from the ground to us. So it happens sometimes people cut down a tree and then they realize that there was a toucan nest inside. That's what happened to Parker and his siblings. There were 3 of them. And something that I learned working here that I love about animals is that every animal is different. They all have their own personalities. It doesn't matter that they're the same species. And yeah, we need to adapt to those personalities. His siblings were very timid and afraid of people, which is great. We need them to avoid humans. Parker happened to feel more comfortable around people. That's why he had to stay here while his brothers got successfully rewound. This is the chestnut-billed toucan or yellow-throated toucan, the biggest species. Since they're the largest ones, I always like to talk about their beaks with them because I feel like they give a better idea to people. Before I tell you, do you have any idea why they have that oversized beak? Any guess?
I would think it would be used for getting into things,
Okay.
sticking their beak into like a tree or something.
Any ideas?
So they can open up cans.
Sorry?
They can open up cans.
Okay. So, well, first of all, their beaks are not as heavy or as strong as people assume they are. I should have said that. That's because the internal structure is reinforced with keratin, just like our fingernails. Which makes sense. If they have heavy beaks, they wouldn't be able to fly. They'll go like... But yeah, the size, it's because helps them for many different things. To reach food that will be unreachable for some species, helps them to defend themselves, but the main purpose, thermoregulation, helps them to cool down. Birds can't sweat like mammals, so they needed to develop different techniques to cool down. In the case of toucans, their beaks are vascularized. There is a flow of blood. When they feel overheated, they increase the flow of blood into their beaks, and that helps them to release heat to the environment, as a radiator from a car. Toucans are not the only ones who developed these. Hornbills also developed the same system. Because they live in the tropical countries of Africa and Asia, and even though they're not closely related to toucans, they developed the same method for the same purpose. They are what we call an example of convergent evolution. Animals that are different but they ended up looking alike because they needed to adapt to the same. Another example would be dolphins and sharks. Similar body shape, but one's a mammal, one's a fish. Or, I told you about sloths before. They belong to different families, they're not that closely related. Aquí hay una foto de una cámara térmica. El pico de ellos es muy caliente, les ayuda a enfriarse.
So their beaks used for heat regulation.
Wow.
You got it? Yeah. This is a picture.
Oh, wow.
Therm can. There you can see.
Funny.
So,
What's this one's name?
Princess.
Princess. Isn't she?
Okay. So we have
Spider monkey.
spider monkey. No, solo tiene pancita.
Para saber.
Sí, está panzoncita, pero no está embarazada. So, this is...
That's really good.
No, ella no. Es curiosa, pero no es de saludar. Ella se llama Noelia. We have Noelia. Por allá tenemos a Samba. Y arriba está Easy. But the blue barrel we have Easy. All of these monkeys were kept as pets. They were under horrible conditions. These are spider monkeys, by the way. The biggest species, together with howler monkeys. They share the first place.
¿Verdad? Todos se columpian. Rapidísimo.
Ah, sí, son muy buenos para eso. See, these animals, 3 of them, were being kept as pets in different places, like different times. The first one that we received was Egypt, the one up there on the left. She used to live chained to a tree outside. Until one day, she got attacked by a pack of dogs whilst she was chained. And due to all the noise and the mess when she was getting attacked, the neighbors realized that there was a monkey in the neighborhood, and they called the Ministry of Environment to rescue her. Now the one back there, that's Noelia. She's pretty easy to tell apart because you'll notice she's missing the tail.
Oh.
When she was a pet, she was abused, and the former owner simply cut off her tail. That's like cutting off someone's arm. Essentially, it's another limb.
La que está allá arriba no le cortaron la cola.
A ella le cortaron la cola, lamentablemente. Que eso es algo muy malo. La cola de ellos es como otro brazo. Le sirve para agarrar cosas.
Y para comer bananas.
A veces se guindan de la cola y con las dos manos agarran los bananos y se los comen, sí. Yeah, luckily, as you can see, she has adapted to live without her tail. She's pretty agile.
Yeah.
Really quick. Just as annoying as the other monkeys that falling behind. But I'd like to tell you a nicer story. I would like to return your faith in humanity.
Good luck.
We have Samba. Back in 2016, there was a little girl. She was in school, so she must have been around 11, 12 years old. And at school, she learned that having wildlife as pets in Costa Rica is illegal. This came quite as shocking news for her because her own mother had Samba as a pet. So she went home, talked to mom, tried to explain it's illegal, it's unethical, it's better we give in to the authorities. This lady clearly didn't listen to her daughter. So one night, quietly, while mom was sleeping, she took Samba, put him in a kennel, and then she escaped with him.
Wow.
She took him to the police. I don't know if there was like a police station nearby, or maybe she knew an officer around the neighborhood, but that's what happened. No, I insist that we need to hire her here one day.
Yeah.
Really like these stories because I feel like it shows that this helps environmental education. It does make a difference. So this is Comet.
Huellas.
It's like a ferret.
Se llama Grison. Grison, ese es el nombre del animal. So these are Grisons. We have Comet and Haley. She's back there.
Looks very similar to like a honey badger.
That's a good observation. I describe them as a mix between ferret and honey badger.
Okay.
Yeah, they're related to both animals and also to otters, weasels, wolverines, fisher cats.
Wow.
Animals with long, elongated bodies, short limbs.
¿Qué come?
Dachshund.
De todo. A ellos les gusta mucho la fruta, las verduras. A ellos les damos zanahorias o vainitas de vez en cuando. Hoy les dimos un poquito de pepino, comida de gato. Les dimos brócoli, vainicas, ayote. Y probablemente les dimos pescado que ya se lo comieron, yo creo. So we,
¿De verdad?
sí, pedacitos de pescado. We also gave them fish. That's usually the source of protein. So these are omnivores, as you can see.
I noticed the sign said carnivore.
Es el agua.
Yeah, I would say it's more omnivore.
More on that.
Versus Wolverine. Well, not as much as they are, but still.
Yeah.
They will take down animals bigger than they are, for sure.
Yeah.
Comet is another example of a fake rescue. So he was kept for about a week before he was brought in here. And then Haley, both Haley and her mom, they got attacked by a pack of dogs. We need to rescue animals whenever they're being affected by people somehow. If a wild animal gets attacked by another wild animal, it might sound cruel, but it's nature. We need to let it happen. In the case of animals getting attacked by dogs or cats, pets are our responsibility. We should be good owners, keep an eye on them, not only for wildlife's sake, but for the same pet's sake.
Where?
Más o menos.
Déjenme hacer las matemáticas. Cometa puede andar por ahí de unos 2 años y medio, Haley por ahí de unos 2 años. Están bastante jóvenes. Yeah, Comet is about 3 years and a half old, Haley about 2 years old. like jovencitos.
How long do they live?
In captivity up to 18 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
They are very young. They reach full growth when they are about 4 months old. So they have a very quick development.
Are they like pack animals?
No, they
Not
can be
really.
solitary.
Yeah.
Occasionally they will form some sort of families, but not something that we see very often. For example, the Sleeping Beauty, the otter, recently stopped eating the same fish that we kept feeding her for years, and decided to eat only tilapia. So now we need to purchase tilapia just for her. And also it's not only the expenses regarding the daily maintenance, but also we have the clinic and the vets using meds and all the medical equipment, which can be expensive as well. So this campaign throws some light on how we deal with these issues and what it means to run a rescue center. So about 3 more minutes and I'll be back.
We need your help. At Toucan Rescue Ranch, we care for approximately 300 rescued wild animals on a daily basis. We are a non-profit that receives no financial support from the government, so we rely entirely on the generosity of people like you.
Here's the room all to myself today, the benefit of coming in December. And out the window, nice little view, there is the airport. Right there. You can see the tower, and of course there's the, the flight leaving. Beautiful sunset.
I ended up finding one of the coolest spots in San Jose, Costa Rica, and it was completely by accident. For my first day in Costa Rica, I booked a tour to see how chocolate was made. They show how they take local cocoa beans, then prepare and package them for consumers. I thought, cool, that looks interesting. It'll be like my coffee production tour in Africa, except with chocolate this time. It felt like this was the perfect day one activity, something chill, and I try not to do anything too crazy, especially if flights get delayed or if I'm exhausted when I land. And unfortunately, or fortunately, they had to cancel my booking just a few hours before I was scheduled to go there. They said something about having to clean the kitchen and close for the day, but they'd be happy to host me tomorrow. Unfortunately, I was already traveling to another part of the country, so they just happily refunded me and I was on my way. It was a bit of a shame, but when traveling, I've learned it's always best to just go with the flow of things. And if you believe in fate, it could be just that there was something even better waiting for me. And later that day, it felt like there really was fate guiding me. The best thing you can do is keep an open mind on your journey and just travel with a smile. And honestly, exploring new cities, absorbing everything that happens around me, it's kind of exciting in its own way. So I was smiling anyway. I was still driving towards the chocolate facility anyways, just because after landing there, I kind of like going in blind, not knowing too much what's around me, because discovery is part of the fun. And I also always like to try and leave holes in my plans intentionally just to see what I could find later and regret not being able to see because I already booked every possible minute in my schedule. And wouldn't you know it, the street was still blocked completely by construction when I was trying to head to the chocolate facility, so it really felt like fate was trying to direct me somewhere else. And there it was. A lady had broken down on the side of the road, beautiful, 10 out of 10. I could tell she was single, super rich, just waiting for any hero to rescue her. And one look into her eyes and I knew she was begging me to marry her and rescue her from this painful life with her overbearing parents. I could go on, but I could see it all in just a single glance. Fate was on my side. Oh, thank you. That's why you go with the flow, guys. Okay, well, I did get a little bit carried away. There was no lady, there was no broken down car, at least not that I saw, but the rest of the story is true. It actually was pretty crazy that the road was blocked off and I kept getting redirected away from my original destination. I just happened to see a sign while I was driving, in this case, an actual sign, and it was just this cool, colorful picture of a toucan, but it still caught my eye. I slowed down, read it, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. I have to find a way to get in. So I actually just drove up the street, which was just a few houses along the way, and it felt a little awkward, like I was driving up someone's driveway, because I actually had no real idea what was back here. But thankfully at the end of the street, it looked like just some sort of zoo? I don't know. It had a huge gate, it was closed, there were some people working nearby, but apparently they weren't working at this location. So I ended up just parking my car in front of the big gate while I was trying to research using their website, using their name, anything I could find. And I wasn't really getting a response on the phone, but at this point I pretty much had my heart set on getting in there. I asked a couple of the locals there if they knew anything about this facility, but apparently they were just doing some landscaping nearby and didn't know anything about it. So I pretty much ended up going to the front gate, and I think I rang the doorbell or someone might have just been walking by, but pretty much my persistence paid off because someone let me in the gate and walked me up to the souvenir shop where I was able to book some tickets for a tour that was happening like 30 minutes later. And I was so happy at that point. The team there was so kind and welcoming, and honestly a little bit confused as to why I couldn't reach anybody on the other end of the phone, but to be honest, that's probably my fault because I wasn't sure how to call an international number. But nonetheless, we were able to get the ticket, and meeting these people, they are absolute experts who love what they do. Veterinarians, biologists, people who are just working here with a great deal of passion, working to protect and heal a lot of these endangered or injured animals that were taken in as pets and abandoned. It's unfortunately common practice that a lot of people take in these pets and use them for entertainment purposes to just be filmed or, bring around tourists so that they'll pay them money so that they get pictures with them. But honestly, it can stress out the animals. For example, a sloth, their face is stuck in a smiling position, but it actually is extremely stressed and you just can't tell it visually. So even though they may be smiling to the camera, underneath their heart rate is going way too fast and actually stressing them and inducing a lot of pain for them. So in that vein, they request that you not film for profit, and that's totally fine because I like to film for education purposes anyways. And any proceeds that ever would come from this, I actually intend to donate to them or another charity, a reputable charity. I encourage you again to support them. Check out their website. They're such a cool facility and they're doing a lot with the limited funds that they have. So please do support them, and I hope you guys enjoy what I've learned because it was such a cool experience, especially for the first day of being in Costa Rica.